Well, what a week that was. Oh my God. Where shall we begin with the events of last week? Well, it's still technically this week, but oh boy. I think it's safe to say that last week was, or probably the most insane we've had in decades, probably since 2001, after 9/11 and all that. And I'm looking back at it, I'm going, how the heck did we get here? And how the heck do we make sure that never happens again? And that's a big question we need to ask ourselves, is that how can we make sure that never ever happens again? There comes a point where we have to realize that we have to be a united country. That regardless of what we may think, we have to find a way to, in the words of Rodney, I can't think of his name. Is it Rodney King? Rodney King back in, after the 1992 LA riots. Can we all just get along? And we have to get along. Otherwise, why are we still a country? We might as well just split up, go our own ways. The people like Trump go here, the people like Biden or hate Trump go there, blah, blah, blah. And that ain't going to happen. In my humble opinion, we have to realize that at the end of the day, Trump is only one person. And he ain't as great as you think he is. And that part of the reason why we saw what we saw wasn't just because of Trump, it's because of people that seem to want to hold on to this idea that their idea of America is the only idea of America. That they are the only ones that can say that, hey, this is what America is, and not anybody else. And the truth is, they're wrong. America has changed a lot. It continues to change. What they're afraid of is something that's been coming for a long time, and that is the change in demographics in America. It has been as obvious to those of us who pay attention to what's going on as anything else. The truth of the matter is that very soon, within the next 10 or 20 years, maybe even sooner. By the way, I forgot to get the thing for the fire alarm. My apologies. It's been a busy week. Everybody's been crazy. Anyhow, what we've seen is in the last 10 or 20 years, or what's coming in the next 10 or 20 years, is the fact that whites will be a minority in this country. They will still be the leading minority for some time to come, but they won't be over 50%, like they have been for pretty much the entire history ever since Europeans came here long, long ago. And when that happens, I should say, it's not going to be noticeable at first. It's going to be one of those things that it'll take probably 10 or 20 more years to really filter down completely to where that change is quite noticeable. But there are people in high places on the right wing, the conservative side of things, that see this coming. And for some reason it scares the hell out of them when it really shouldn't. But being in power and seeing that you might lose that power is a very sobering thing. This is not necessarily the first time this has happened in human history. We go back 30 years to South Africa, when it was just a matter of time before black folks, who had been in a majority the whole time, but had been held back by apartheid. And when the time came, the world basically said, you can't do this anymore, or we're going to completely shut you out completely, which they pretty much had at that point. The realization hit, and they had to basically get rid of apartheid. And overnight, things changed. But that was because blacks had always been in numerical majority there. And the only reason whites had been in power was because they had the guns, they had the will to use them, and they had pretty much kept things down. But situations like that never work out in the long run. You look at what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Right now you have Israelis who are trying their best to hold back the Palestinians because they want to keep that land for themselves, which not too long ago, say 70, 80 years ago, was actually not theirs. It was the Palestinians' land. Because if you look through the history, you'll see that everything was kosher until the time came when first Britain and then the United States decided, well, we'll resettle the Jews from Europe to Israel. And that may have seemed like a good thing at the time, but two things really changed the Middle East to where it became what it is today. Israel and oil. Every major conflict we've had in my lifetime involving the Middle East has been those two things. Israel and oil. The hostage crisis of now over 40 years ago was because of oil. And directly because of oil. 30 years ago, the first Gulf War was because of oil indirectly. We wanted to free Kuwait from the oppression of Iraq, but let's not kid ourselves. It was about access to oil. And anything we've done in Lebanon or Syria or Egypt has had to deal with Israel for the most part. Now, getting back to the subject of what happened this week, you have people that believe themselves to be the only real Americans. They've been fed this garbage for a long period of time, thinking that they're the real Americans, they're the only Americans, and anybody that disagrees with them is communist, a traitor, and all this other bullcrap. When in fact, history has shown that that is not the case. It is the result of over 40 years of a movement to get away from the old way of doing politics, which is, you have this fierce debate during election season. You play to your constituents, but in reality, you've got people that will get things done, and you get deals done, and you show, and come election time, you go back to the populace, say, hey, this is what we did, blah, 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 blah. Somewhere along the line, some Republicans thought it was a good idea that they should basically try and stagnate government. Stagnate Washington. And they've made an enemy of Washington. Now, I'm not saying that Washington's always been good or anything like that. But up until roughly 1978, 1980, government was seen not nearly as badly as it is today. It took people like Reagan and those mainly who supported him that decided, well, we've got to make a scapegoat of government, because we don't want government to do what government should do, which is basically to protect the interest of the people in general, to promote the general welfare. And when I talk about that, some people go, well, you're talking about big government. That's the problem. You have this idea that it's a big government, small government thing, when reality is basically what a lot of these conservatives want is no government. They want to basically be able to do whatever they want, whenever the hell they want to, without any consequences, which is what we saw on Wednesday. You're going to have people say these people should not be charged for what they did, that they were supposedly, doing what they felt was right. Well, guess what? That's not how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. The way it goes is like this. These people forcibly invaded a place where they had no right to have access to, and they should be charged as such. We all want to make believe that this is somehow some fantasy, that these people were freedom fighters, when in fact they were not. They were people that wanted to basically promote their idea of freedom, which is basically rich white people can do whatever the hell they want to. Poor white people can think they can do whatever they want to, except they've got to be subservient to their bosses, and blacks and browns and Chinese, Asians, and whatnot have to be way down the pecking order. In this country, we love to scapegoat. We sometimes forget why we scapegoat people. That's why you saw the campaign almost 5 years ago now, where Donald Trump basically scapegoated Muslims and Mexicans because it seemed convenient. Sorry, I had a hanging nail there. I had to get rid of it. It's annoying me. To me, anytime you scapegoat somebody, it almost very inevitably proves to be wrong, and proves that, in fact, the people that are doing the scapegoating are the big problem themselves. And I think in the long run, scapegoating provides more problems than it actually solves anything. I mean, look what happened in Germany. The Jews were the scapegoats, and what happened? You saw the rise of Hitler, and a country pretty much destroyed, as well as most of Central Europe. It is a real shame that people don't understand the dangerous thing that's going on right now, where you have one group that decides that their view of America is the only view of America, any other view of America is wrong. They've given way to conspiracy theories, thinking that people that aren't the enemy are the enemy, and they have been manipulated this way, and not just by Russia. There are people who don't like the fact that we are a democracy, because democracy means that small people, average everyday working people, even the poor, have a voice, and that they can have their grievances addressed. And there are people who don't like that. So I have noticed some people on the right wing say this very phrase: America is not a democracy. It is. It is a representative democracy. It is that obvious. And it's not because of people confusing small democratic with small d democratic with big D democratic. It is, I believe, the intent of some people to get rid of democracy. Because to them, why would we want to have people that aren't seeing things our way to vote? That's the other thing's getting on my nerves. I really need to replace. It's just one of them things you get busy on the road after work, and you come home and all this. This is why I did a broadcast yesterday, so I've kind of got to catch up. Anyhow, let me wrap it up for you right here because I've just came on here just to talk. We can't allow that ever to happen again. If we want to be the greatest country in the world, we have to realize that we can't allow that ever to happen again. If we can't solve our problems talking, and we have to resort to violence, then what the hell is a country for? That's it for now. Good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours.